Hello, I'm Matt Peterson.
And I'm Rich Trappier.
And this is episode 47 of History on the Table. Another month, another episode, Rich.
I know, another one in the books. We made it in time.
Just in time. You're back from a little convention.
Yeah, a little convention where we played a big game, so
yeah,
good time.
We'll get your AAR on that. We're going to talk some games. We're going to talk some books. We're going to do all the things. This episode should be out on April 27th, 28th at the latest. So if you're listening to this as it drops, if you're listening to this before April 30th, this is the final week for early bird registration for Historic Fest. So you get a discount, you get a little beer sign, all that cool stuff. But more importantly, early registration helps us plan. So if you're coming to join us in August in Kansas City, go sign up.
I forgot about the beer stein. I just wanted to sign up early.
Yeah, well, a little bonus. So yeah, if you're coming, the early registration really does help. Lets us plan, lets us know, like, all right, let's do this. All that stuff eases my mind, and yeah. So once that is done, after April 30th, on the Facebook page, we'll just be promoting all the events that people are looking for, helping people find games, and then we're on the final countdown until August.
Not that far away.
No, it's gonna be here before we know it. So we did a little thing a couple weeks ago. Our friend Bill Simone joined me for the presentation of the Historical Board Game Awards. We did that on YouTube, and of course we've announced it on the website and stuff, but it was kind of done between episodes, so we've not had a chance to recognize the winners of the Historical Board Game Awards. So the Anglo-Zanzibar Award, which is a long way of saying the best small form game, was Flashpoint South China Sea, designed by Harold Buchanan, published by GMT Games.
If you want to know more about that one, listen to our short game extravaganza from a couple months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't watch the video where I did the whole Oscar flub. Most Innovative Game Design and Game of the Year was won by the same game, a game Rich and I both thoroughly enjoy, and obviously so many other people do, John Company's second edition Coal Whirly Gig Games.
Oh yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it was a fun little process. Looking forward to 2023. Okay, I think that's all the beginning stuff to get out of the way. Do you have anything?
No. Did you want to talk about the game draft we did, or just let them find that on their own?
So if you're listening to this and you have not listened to the 2023 board game draft, Rich was kind enough to join me and three other participants for a drafting of what started as 5 games, and spoiler alert, we ended up doing a bonus round. For 6
bonus
games.
round sunk me, I think.
Well, at least in my eyes. I mean, overall, I think you did much better than me. But yeah, that was a fun process.
Yeah, it was a good time, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see what we do for next year. If we're just gonna take those games off the list and go from there, or do something else.
Yeah, they're drafted. They're gone. They're off the board.
Right.
I gotta say, I really appreciate. There was some really great lists submitted on our Discord from people of what their 5 or 6 picks would be.
Listen, I think it was Bruce that just had like all GCACW.
Yeah,
pretty much. 2
GCACW picks. Lots of World in Flames going, which I think makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, let's get to it.
All right, Rich, I've got a game for you that so our Pacific War game got a late start last month and really just turned into a good BS session talking about coin and other games. And our buddy Carl mentioned he's been playing this game and I will bet that you have never heard of this series, Empires of the Apocalypse.
I have never heard of that series.
Okay. So Carl sold this to us as basically, and I may be misremembering, but in my mind it was OCS-like, but you also like actually bring on manpower in this grand campaign game. And they've been playing the full kit and caboodle, and his description was really interesting. And so I started digging around, and there's a title, or one of the entries in the, you can like buy each one individually and then combine it for a monster game. Kind of like TSWW, but.
Okay.
So Triumph and Fall of the Desert Fox is the Africa portion, and the kicker here for me was it comes with a torch scenario, which not a lot of games do because torch is kind of
Right.
why would you game it?
Sure.
But that's like one of my favorite parts of Africa, and I've always looked for games that do something with Torch. And so that's in this game, and this could be combined with the rest of the Empires of the Apocalypse, but I didn't set that's not my goal. I want to play this Africa game and just see what this series is about. So I found a great online retailer that had super cheap shipping, sent it out right away, included like a little caramel candy, and I don't even remember who I bought it from. I should have looked, but it was like $13 for this game. It was published in 1998, and it has this atrocious hex representation of swamps. And one of the things on the back is, and now the number one reason to buy the game, the most beautiful swamp hex in wargaming today. Now, this was 1998, but I got to tell you, this is one of the worst swamp hexes I've ever seen represented on a map. So something we normally don't talk about from a publisher. This is published by Udo Greb Game Design from Bedburg, Germany in 1998. So the games are out there and you can track them down. And basically,
yeah, it looks like you can buy it on BGG for like $15.
Yeah, I found it for like an actual game retailer, and I can track it down and put a link to the show notes and bought 2 copies. Well, I haven't played it yet. This is just, I'm going to set it up. It looks like 1998 art, but Carl had really nice things to say about it. I think it at least is an interesting, for $13, it sounds very interesting.
Nice.
And really, I had a quiet month. I have some things on the way for May, but that's kind of it for April.
Okay. Well, I picked up a couple. One I picked up from Carl, from Eagles. He was selling a bunch to raise some money for the other con, and I picked that one up. So that's Hexasim's Waterloo game. So I have played, I think it's Rising Eagles, the Austerlitz game, and I really enjoyed that one. So when I saw this one come up, I wanted to get that. So Fallen Eagles, and then the other one I picked up, everyone knows well, is Sekigahara, which is actually a game that I had sold a little while back, but my daughter, who's now getting into war games, she came up to me just a couple weeks ago and she said, "Hey, what was that Japanese game with the blocks?" And she goes, "I really want to play that one again." So
you smacked your forehead. Yeah,
so I had a chance to pick it up and I got that one. So because I know it's going to get played, so it's always worth it if I've got someone that wants to play it.
So that joins the prestigious ranks of Last 100 Yards is a game you got rid of and reacquired.
Yep, that's 2 now.
We've got to do some of those Austerlitz games sometimes. I know I keep saying it, but we really should dive into
games.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
and there's I think there's 4 of them. I think there's Quadra Battles and actually Austerlitz and Ligny, I think is the other one. Yeah.
Well, or even the Toikanatsu, or I probably butchered that.
Oh yeah,
but the Japanese game, like any of those, I would gladly play them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we took a similar path for books. I did not reach the end destination, so I started with the goal of ending up where you are at, and this will make sense in just a second. So I'm reading An Army at Dawn, because even though I wanted to start with the Day of Battle to get to the Salerno stuff, I just couldn't do it because I have An Army at Dawn. I've always wanted to read it, and so I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. So I'm reading Rick Atkinson's An Army at Dawn. If you're unfamiliar, this is a trilogy covering World War II, and it's really focused on the U.S. path, right? Like it does spend a lot of time in the British Army, but it's really from U.S. entry.
Yeah, it's probably U.S. focus. I mean, it's I think he calls it the Liberation Trilogy, so it's the European War of World War II.
So I spoiled it, but you're obviously reading the second book.
Yeah, so I read An Army at Dawn, I think a couple years ago, and I enjoyed it. It didn't really blow me away or anything. It was just good, solid. But for whatever reason, I'm really liking Day of Battle a lot more. Okay. And maybe it's just I really knew almost nothing about the Italian campaign, and there's really just a lot of fascinating stuff in there. So
sure.
So I haven't finished it yet. They have landed in Anzio, and that's about how far I am into the book now. So I got a little while left to go, but it's really good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. So much so that I'll definitely want to read the third one, although probably not as my next book.
Have you, and maybe not, but have you done anything with? He's got the Revolution trilogy that he started.
He did Is that the British are coming?
Yeah.
Yes, I read that one. Yep.
Okay.
I enjoyed that one, yeah.
So last month I picked that back up. Like I've gone very slow with that. And it's pretty good. I'm only about halfway through it, but it's a slow burn.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So outside of that and Triumph and Fall of the Desert Fox, I had a very quiet month playing Salerno 43. And a lot of my games were turned into just chit-chat sessions or people were away at cons. And so I didn't do much. So why don't you take it away? And it looks like everything you've listed here was played at Donkey Con. Is that right?
Yeah, everything was at the con. I had a couple of online games scheduled for earlier in the month, but I think they got canceled. Stuff came up. So
Sure.
But I got plenty to play at the Donkey Con to make up for it. So for those of you who don't know, Donkey Con it's a very small con here in St. Louis where it's just a very few people, but we all usually play a big game. So there's 5 or 6 different big games going, but everybody's going to be playing a big game that's going to last them pretty much the whole week, and then we'll play smaller stuff in the evenings. But so my big game, which I've actually been talking about for a few months, but it's The Greatest Day. It's a GTS game, Sword, Juno, and Gold Beaches. So we had 7 players. We had 3 allied players on the beaches plus an allied airborne player, and then 3 German players separating their sectors. And we actually started online, but we picked it up and we played the entire first day of the campaign. So it was fantastic. I love the system. I loved the game. I loved the experience. It's interesting and good. I mean, it's definitely the best D-Day game that I've ever played.
Wow.
The invasion is actually interesting where you get to make decisions, it's not just like one roll and you take a step loss or something. So it's good. You got to fight your way off the beaches. There's gaps, there's mines. You have to, use the right kind of tanks to take out the mines. You have to get your engineers in position without getting them all shot to hell. You have to use naval bombardment to suppress the enemies. It's just a really, really good game that I enjoyed quite a bit.
What side were you playing?
So I played the 50th Canadian Division, which is on Gold Beach, which
Nice.
is the furthest beach to the west, furthest of these beaches.
I also see on your list Operation Mercury,
Yeah.
which is the one I have played. That's Invasion of Crete.
Yeah,
More GTS, right?
exactly. And yeah, we had such a good time that 2 of us, in fact, Todd, the guy that I played across the table from, we were having such a good time that I already had Crete because I bought it when it went on some super sale from MMP a couple years ago. It was still in shrink, but he got online and picked it up that day from a local guy, and we started playing again when we finished Greatest Day. We just jumped right into Mercury and played a couple scenarios because we had such a good time with the system. And I've got it on my table, so we're gonna play some more. We're gonna set up, probably play through the scenarios and maybe jump into the campaign at some point.
You've obviously spent a lot more time with this than I have, and I don't know if you've played Fighting Formations or not, but in my mind, no. GTS and Fighting Formations are both this. I think they both do outstanding things, but they kind of get in a way of themselves. I don't know. Did you feel this way, or did that So I guess what I'm saying is when I played GTS, it just felt very fiddly, and there was lots of things you had to do to get done what you're trying to get done. There was just a lot of steps, and not all of them were the most intuitive, but that was also learning the game, not doing a huge deep dive in the rules, having someone explain it to me. And so as you played these more, has the game kind of gotten out of its own way, and does it flow pretty smooth, or is that...
So we were lucky because we were playing with Ty, who's really an expert.
Ty is the expert on GTS. Yeah.
Yeah, having him there was easy. But as we went, it made more sense. And is it fiddly? I mean, yeah, sometimes, you've got suppression, you've got cohesion hits. There's different ways to wear a guy down, and they add up in different ways. You can put not bombardments, but you can put... There's a different word for it, but you can put bombardments on a guy to reduce his fire zone. So yeah, you can have a stack of counters. The stacks can get pretty high because of all the different markers and everything. But really, it's just trying to show the effects of a determined defense on something. It's not a perfect system. There's a couple of things that are kind of weird in that there's no flanking at all. So it doesn't. You can completely have a guy surrounded, and it doesn't really matter that much. And little things like the attacker can never take a loss. So you just there's no penalty at all for attacking. You can attack a guy 10 times stronger than you. The only possible penalty is then, he's going to get a turn 2 on his turn. If he attacks back, he'll smush you. But little things like that. But overall, it was just a great game, and I really like the system. I'm curious to see. D-Day is just fascinating. Crete, I know less about. So I'm curious to see how much I like the system in a different game.
Sure. Awesome. All right, what else did you play?
So I spent my evenings playing a variety of kind of silly games that I'm not going to list on here, but I did get a chance to play a couple tactical games that I haven't played before. I guess I have played Panzer, but very little. So we played more of Panzer with the advanced rules and some tanks. I just wanted to try that out and see how I liked it. So we played a game of that. And then I played my first ever game of Combat Commander as well. So it was kind of fun to try out a couple different tactical systems. And you had just mentioned fighting formations. I think that's the last one on the list for me of like the big World War II tactical systems. So
Panzer Grenadier?
No, I guess not that one either. Yeah, so there's always more out there.
There is.
The biggest ones I think I've got once I get fighting formations. So yeah, I enjoyed both of them. Neither of them is going to replace ASL anytime soon, but Combat Commander in particular, I really liked that one. Panzer was fine. Panzer felt more like ASL light, but Combat Commander felt like something different.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a while since I played, but I haven't played Panzer. But as far as Combat Commander goes, it's definitely its own thing, which is nice. Great. Anything else you play? That you want to talk about?
No, we don't need to talk about the creature that ate Sheboygan. Or, what is it? Tiny horrible things from outer space.
Tiny green things from outer space.
Yeah, that one.
That's a pretty interesting game, though.
They were fun, but we won't talk about them. They don't need to go on the list.
So, Rich, I know you're no longer on Twitter, but GMT put this link out, and it was from this collegiate quiz show from the UK. Did you happen to catch the link? I don't know if they put it on Facebook or anything else.
No, I don't remember seeing it.
So it's pretty interesting. It was like a bonus round for this collegiate game show, and the final 3 questions in this bonus round were, I should have looked exactly how they phrased it, but it was basically history was the category, and it was historical board games as represented on BGG.
Nice.
And it was pretty good. And the answers were, well, I won't spoil it for you or anyone listening. You can go watch the video and guess for yourself. And I just want to say I would smoke all 3 of those teams, or all 2 of those teams for those 3 questions. I'm sure they would kick my ass in every other regard. So what I thought we would do for the Wargame game, it's going to be a little different tonight if you're okay with that.
All right, I'm up for anything.
So I thought this was so interesting that I thought I would do the quiz show thing. I'm not gonna copy the answers or the questions from the fine gentleman in the UK, but I did pull some games, and the premise is I'm only using the description from BGG, which is most often provided by the publisher. You have to guess the game.
Oh, cool! Like it.
So a little like the Wargame game, but like 1 or 2 sentences is all you're going to get. But it's going to be more. This should be pretty clear.
Sure. Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Let's start with maybe it'll be easy, maybe not. I have 4 or 5, and we can just see how it goes. Okay. This is a board war game about campaigns in the Spanish Reconquista, which is Leonese King Alfonso VI advances against the 11th century fractious Muslim Taifa states and the resulting intervention by fundamental African Muslim army seeking to roll the Christians back.
Is it Almoravid?
That's right.
There we go. Hey, 1 for 1. I like the new game. Let's just stop there.
Okay.
Batting 1,000.
Okay. Let's maybe pick up the difficulty. Okay. Covering what is this game, which covers the Battle of Stalingrad from October to November 1942.
You're going to give me more than that, I hope.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Like
so what's
games.
Interesting is they really only used, and I guess they added more than what I'm adding, but
Pavlov's house.
No, okay, that was probably
Streets
a bad
of
pick.
Stalingrad. I mean,
it's Storm over Stalingrad. Okay, that was a terrible one to pick. Okay. Let's try a different one. Okay, this game depicts a 100,000 strong Ottoman army arriving outside the Habsburg capital of Vienna. Inside the city, 12,000 infantry and
Siege
citizens.
of Vienna.
Yeah, Fire and Stone, Siege of Vienna.
There we go. I love it.
So it's interesting. On the quiz show, one of them, he's like, this is a 2-word title. And I think it was like the easiest one. Like the one that, the last one, he like also gave a drink clue. So I guess he did it expand beyond Board Game Geek. But I was like, that was the easiest one, and you're given the most juice. The other ones were tricky. Okay, final one. Okay. This game covers the period after the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC.
Successors.
Damn it.
I like this new game. I'm much better at it.
Okay, yeah, we obviously have to mix this up. Anyways, a fun video that I thought, like, what's interesting is, like, the 3 people there's 4 people on the team trying to handle this bonus round. None of them had any idea, except for on the third one.
Yeah.
When I'm just going to spoil it. The final one is, like, also a name for a popular Cuban drink. Does that do it for you, or no?
No.
Okay. It's Cuba Libre. But so it also like tied.
I didn't even know that was a drink. I guess that makes sense, but okay.
Yeah.
That's
and
funny.
so like that was the only one that they had any idea on. It was interesting.
And they knew it because of the drink.
Yeah,
like
exactly
said,
right.
Yeah, we may know that, but they know everything else. So
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I thought it was fun, but we'll be back to the normal Wargame game, or we'll do this. I need to watch that guy and work on my British accent to really get the charm across that that video had.
Absolutely, I'll have to check out that video too.
Yeah, I'll if I remember when I'm editing, I'll put a link down in the show notes. All right. Well, we have one more game to talk about.
One more game.
I'm actually really excited about this.
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
This was your pick, right? You nominated this one?
It was, yeah.
All right, why don't you introduce it then?
Sure. So I want to say the latest, but I think it still is the latest. The new one's not out yet. The North Africa's game's not out yet, I don't think. So
right.
Latest in the Zakban series, if you want to call it that, by Mark Simonich, published by GMT Games, Salerno 43. Just came out last year, 2022. So it's been on my radar. I P500'd it just because it's a Simonich Zakban game, and why not? And it's been on a lot of the year-end best game lists. I haven't seen it winning those, but it's getting a lot of buzz from that anyway. And it's a smaller game. It's only one map. So it's, the other games I played, Ardennes and Holland, are both 2 maps. Stalingrad, I think that's 2 maps as well, if I'm correct.
Stalingrad's like 4 or 5.
Is it 4? Okay. Yeah, so
it's a big
It's much smaller, but it's the same system, and it covers the Allied amphibious invasion of southern Italy after they had already taken Sicily, and I guess you would call it the mainland of Italy, and it's just a great little Zakban game. I had a good time playing it. As I was playing it, I kept thinking to myself, this is like the Aracourt of the Zakban series.
Yeah, I think that's that's very well said. Just as framework here, so you said World War II Italian campaign. This is Operation Avalanche. And so this is like a joint effort by Fifth Army. Gosh, I can't even remember anymore. US, UK. And what's interesting is like Italy was out. And so you have the Germans defending south of Rome still at this point.
Yeah, and when you say like Italy was out, it happened like the night before the invasion.
Right.
Like the morning of. It was like right as we were invading.
So they withdrew, and that left the Germans to defend. And what's interesting, and what, when I was playing live, you're like, you should do a counterattack against the beach. What's interesting is the Germans during this campaign actually, they tried the same thing, right? They tried to drive the beachhead back into the ocean.
Yeah.
To offset this invasion, but Rommel convinced Hitler in the midst of that to not defend Italy south of Rome. So shortly thereafter, with Allied forces against the ropes, probably, who knows how it would have gone. I'm sure that they would have persevered, but who knows? I'm not the one to say. They decided to withdraw north of Rome, or to Rome, rather. And so it's kind of an interesting it's not really a what if per se, but it is kind of an interesting beach landing. It's such a smaller scale than Normandy.
Yeah. You get basically 4 landings. You've got like an American landing, a British landing, and then a little further north you have some American Rangers and some British Rangers that each do a smaller landing as well. But neither side, even if you put all the counters in the entire game, it's not a super counter dense game.
No.
It's mostly terrain that does the heavy lifting in this game.
Yeah, and it's most closely related to. I was surprised to hear him say this. So Simonich says it's most closely related to Stalingrad with a good dose of Normandy 44, and obviously he knows better than I do. In my mind, I've always thought of it as Normandy 44's little brother.
Yeah.
Because you comparing it to Aracourt, which is the BCS beginner entry, this is one of the. I'm a big proponent of if you want to play a game, dive in, put the work in, and enjoy it. There's no path you have to take to playing war games, right?
Right.
If someone said, I do want a lighter, good introduction historical game, and I want it to be a war game, Hex Encounter, then Salerno 43 is like a perfect choice. The setup is so clean and easy. You match, it's a Simonich design, so it has the counter sheet where you set up all your units, and it's, as you said, not very counter dense, so it's easy to set up, it's quick playing, and it's a fairly straightforward war game design with good amount of chrome.
Yeah. And I can't say enough about how much I like the way Simonich's game's set up. Every single counter has either the turn it enters, or if it starts on the map, it has the hex it starts on.
Yeah.
And then it's also got the nice little setup cards, which are nice for, arranging everything. But even if you literally just threw all the counters in the pile, you could pull it out and you could instantly look at the counter, tell when it's coming on or where it's going to be, which I just love.
Yeah, and here it's so bite-sized that, I mean, like 24 allied counters, or maybe there's more than that. I don't know what the actual count is, but it's just it's got a great-looking map, but it's not a table hog. I love Stalingrad 42, but that's a massive game with a lot of counters. Mm-hmm. And so this is the same scale as Normandy 44, so it's a little bit zoomed in than something like Stalingrad 42, but you're just dealing with a smaller scale scenario, operation.
Yeah.
In terms of gameplay wise, it's relatively you go, I go, meaning the German player will take their turn and they'll work through the sequence of play. There is an optional rule for like withdrawal, which gives a little bit more decision to the non-active player. I didn't play with that at all in any of my plays.
Yeah. And I don't remember another Zachbond game that has that rule.
No, I think that's new.
Okay.
Unless it's in Stalingrad and I'm not remembering, I think that's completely new.
Okay.
And they just punch through that sequence of play. There's some decision to be made, obviously, with retreats or determined defenses or something like that. And then it passes back to the allied player. And I've talked about, and I think you're with me, I'm not a huge fan of you go, I go. But here it's not counter dense. So like turns do.
It's not like an OCS game where you go and 2 hours later I go.
Right. Some of the stuff that a lot of the combat die roll modifiers or the column shifts, they're the Zachbond staples, like armor shifts or having armor present and denying armor advantage or defending in a city. The stuff that's been present in the series before is present, but artillery felt a little bit different, and otherwise it shared a lot with, again, going to Normandy.
And
with
this one has airstrikes and naval support.
Naval, yeah.
Depending on weather.
More limited than what's present in Normandy, but yeah.
Yeah. But like I said before, really the main thing that separates this one from the other games I played is the terrain. The terrain is just brutal. It's you're almost always going to be attacking. Now, not so much when you first get off the beach, but a couple turns in when you're starting to move into the hills and mountains, you're almost always going to be attacking at half strength. And if you're attacking across a mountain hex side or into a pure mountain hex, not only that, but you're going to be half effectiveness just moving across it. You were talking about armor shifts. You're not going to be getting armor shifts anymore because everything is in the mountains and hills and you can't get an armor shift there. So it is really, really tough to dislodge a determined defender. And you had mentioned the determined defense, which does exist in the other games, but this one, I think this is a new thing as well, but it actually adds a layer to the determined defense called there's a second determined defense. I can't remember what it's called, but you can do even more in certain situations.
Desperate defense.
Desperate defense. That's it.
Yeah, that's in some of the other stuff too.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So as the Germans, you're basically just trying to hold the Allies. The victory points, if you care about that. Usually with war games, I don't really tally up points just because that's not why I'm playing. But if you care about that, there are victory hexes marked on the board. And this reminded me of your favorite game, Matt,
yes.
US Civil War, because there are moving goalposts. So every turn, as the Allies, there's a victory target. So say it's turn 4 and you have to have 7 points or whatever. If you have 2, you lose. If you have 12, you win. So 5 either way is a sudden death condition. But
yeah, go ahead.
I found that the Allies will scoop up a fair amount in the first 3-4 turns, and then it tends to get stagnant after that, again because of the terrain and because the Germans are going to get a lot more reinforcements than the Allies will.
Yeah, and I mean, I think those moving goalposts are important here just because the Allies are going to overwhelm them.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. One of my favorite things when I was first getting into historical board games is seeing and this was true of U.S. Civil War and Normandy 44. I played U.S. Civil War first, but Normandy 44 has the historical timeline. This is where the Allies were at. So you can keep pace with them, but it's not the deciding factor in the game. Here, you need to keep up and accomplish these objectives. I like that driving force. It didn't feel crippling or anything like that. What's interesting, I think, on the Germans, and this is kind of when we talked about Holland 44, this was kind of one of the comments we had, is the German players kind of taking it in the teeth, right? And it's a question of where do you draw your battle lines? Where do you try to defend? But ever since you popped in the live stream and talked about going after the beachheads, I think that opened up the game. I was such in a defensive mindset in past plays that then going forward and then reading some of the play tips, that turn 1 knocking out a beachhead is so huge. Or maybe taking Salerno back or just somehow trying to cripple the Allied advance.
Yeah, because the Allies can never get that beach back, and it will limit how many new units they can land for the rest of the game.
It's huge. So I think there's even more. How aggressive do you want to be as the Germans on turn 1? But then you risk, okay, if you plunge forward, well, the Allies might be able to sneak behind you and start coming with supply, especially near up Salerno. It's kind of easy, I think, to cut off the Germans if they don't watch their flanks.
Yeah. I found I played it 2.5 times. I played twice all the way through, and I played a third time where I made it about halfway through. All solitaire. I didn't get to play against anyone, but I found that the best German strategy is probably to hit the American beaches to the south, hit them as hard as you can on the first turn, pull back a little bit from the Brits, because the Brits they've got more terrain and they're closer to, especially if they roll well on their invasion, there's a good chance they're going to take Salerno on the first turn anyway. Because you've got one of those variable units that might not be there at all. You might roll, a bad roll for him, and he just falls off the map. So
so you have these units, which are tons of fun, I think, that can be nothing, or they can actually be 2 defense strength, but they can move, or most of them can move. So the Allied player can't completely ignore them, because then they can start messing with supply lines. But also they may go after them, and then it be nothing, or it be a kind of stout defense if you're in a city or something like that.
Yeah. One other thing I thought was interesting was the weather in this game is cyclical.
Yep.
So you roll every time when you roll for weather, what you're rolling is to see how many boxes you advance. And then when you get to the end of the track, you start back from the beginning. So it's kind of like you can see a storm coming in and it lasts for a day or two and then it rolls back out, but there's more storms coming in. I have no idea what the weather is like or was like during that time, but it seems like that's what they're trying to model.
Yeah, and that limits the German Air Force. There's only very limited use of
and the Allied Air Forces to some degree, but not as much. Yeah.
Right. So one of my biggest complaints, or why Normandy 44 doesn't quite reach Holland or Stalingrad, has always been this combat factor limitation, which is here and present in...
Yep, they do have it here. Yeah.
Salerno. I think... So reading Simonich's design notes, which are great. as always. The reason behind that is just so combat is snap decisions. It's not perfect calculations of getting 4-1 odds and just drawing the game out, which I think is important in a beginner friendly game like Salerno or an introductory game. I'm still not a huge fan of it, but it's not.
I will say in this one, it comes up a lot less than it does.
That's it.
In
the
the
counter
ones.
density. Well, it's because it's. I don't know if it's in the
You
other
just
ones
don't have
outside
as
of
much,
Normandy,
right? So it's
because
harder
Holland
to
44
get
doesn't
20
have it.
factors.
Right, because the counter density isn't as dense as like.
Yeah.
At some point on Normandy 44, when you open the beaches up, like you just have really strong forces coming in. You're able to, maintain the main attack force composition pretty easily, and it's easy to get a good attack force in certain parts of Normandy. And so it seems to come up a lot, but that's where I was going with this. I don't think it's as big a problem here because you don't have the density, especially once the game opens up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do like that Simonich's games in the Zokban, they teach you to keep your units together. You attack by using units from the same division.
Right.
You can usually have something tag along for free, and that's good, especially if you're learning a game, and it also gives it some historical flavor as well.
Sure. Yeah, which will lead you into something like BCS, where everything is based on the formation activation. So.
I guess we've said the buzzword a couple times, but we haven't really dove into it. We've talked about it in the past, and that's Zokban.
Yeah.
Which is so.
Yeah, we should explain it because not everyone knows what that is. So in Simonich's series, and you'll see these. There's, Normandy 44, France 40, Holland 44. Anything with a European name and then just 2 numbers after it is probably in this series. So this one's Salerno 43. But so the way the units work in this is they link up through something called a Zokban. So if you have 2 units that are basically a hex away from each other, they have what amounts to an impenetrable force field in between them. So much so that if a unit is forced to retreat across a Zokban, it just instantly dies. You can't advance through it. You can't do anything unless you break that Zokban by killing or chasing off one of the units is causing it. So all of his games are based around this Zokban, so they all have a similarity in that the defender particularly, you're going to see all of his guys every other hex across his line of defense.
Yeah, so Zone of Control.
Yeah.
This is an extension of Zone of Control. In a lot of war games, when you move into the 6 hexes surrounding a unit, you usually have to stop or pay more movement or whatever. It varies from every game. This is like an extension of that. And where I was going with this is we had a great question from our Discord from Scuba, and he asked, did you find yourselves using the actual bonds as much in the mountains of southern Italy? I did not. I think this is a great question. Like, Zokbans are present, but I never... Whereas in Normandy 44 and Stalingrad in particular... I'm trying to remember if I used them a ton in Holland, and I just can't remember. I really feel like that was an important part for the defender. Both Germans and Russians early were establishing these Zokbans to basically deny not only retreat blocks and surrounding people, but it also cuts off supply, blocks movement, all that kind of stuff. So they're important. Here I just didn't... It was present in the game, and sure, it came up sometimes, but it wasn't like a major thought process in my strategy.
Yeah, and I would say in Ardennes and Holland, you'll see them much more, and they will be much more important. In particularly because Ardennes and Holland, even more on this one, even though it does have the sort of moving goalposts, movement for the attacker in those 2 games is so important. I mean, it's all about a race to the finish line before your time or your supply runs out. Whereas this one, you are trying to scoop up those victory points as the turns tick off, but it's not as much of a race as Ardennes and Holland are.
Sweet. Combat itself is relatively straightforward. It does, Rich mentioned the determined defense, which is a great component of either choosing to retreat or stand your ground, and that can have adverse consequences. But it's odds calculation with some shifts that we've kind of talked about already. What else are we missing?
Just a single D6.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say, and this is going to be contrary to other things I've said, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm okay with that. So I like that this is a simple sort of introduction game. But as I was reading A Day of Battle and reading about the actual invasion, I started thinking that there's a lot in this game that I wish was modeled more accurately. And there's a couple things in particular. One is that in the book, he talks a lot about the Germans blowing bridges, and that's not in this game at all. But that's already in Holland 44 for sure, and maybe some other games. So it'd be an easy thing to put in, which I think would be a little thing you could put in, which would make it better. But way more than that. So in this game, the Allies, with the exception of a possible German counterattack on turn one, it's pretty easy to expand out from the beaches. The Allies don't really start running into trouble until they get into the mountains, which is 2 or 3 hexes out in most places. Historically, the Allies almost had their beaches overrun. They had a hard time holding on to it. The Germans were constantly counterattacking. And in the game, there's a day 3 airborne drop that has to be done, I think, within 2 or 3 hexes of a beach. Mm-hmm. And it's usually done somewhere on the front lines, or at least close to it, where they can... It's never on the beachhead. Historically, they dropped them on the beachhead because they were about to be overrun. So I don't know if that's because the Germans aren't modeled strong enough on turn one, or, it's just not fun if the Allies get kicked off the beach in turn one for the players. I don't know if that's gamifying or what, but that was one of the big things I noticed between playing the game and reading the historical accounts that seemed like quite a disconnect for me.
Oh, that's very interesting. I mean... Yeah. I haven't gotten to the book yet, but that's, that's been, you mentioned that your GTS game was the best D-Day game you've played, and we've always said that Normandy 44 is not a D-Day game. It's a Normandy game.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was a side effect of, I have this invasion, this beach landing system from Normandy 44, which is really meant to lead to the after landing movement of forces. Because you're right, the landings in this game are just roll and see what happens. There's no units on the beach. I mean, you have to move the Germans down to attack the Allies once they land. Interesting. I'll be looking forward to that when I get to book 2 of Atkinson's book.
Yeah. So again, and obviously you're adding a couple XAD to it. You're always... I thought that those 2 in particular were a couple things that stood out to me as possibly missing from this game. Interesting.
I'm glad you brought those up. Anything else you want to say about the game?
No, it's fun, and it's a game that you can play at a game day. If you've got a monthly game day with your local group or whatever. Like I said, I never played it against anyone, so it's hard to know because I'm playing, a turn here and a turn there. But I think you could play the full game in 5 hours tops.
Yeah, I guess if you really know it. I mean, the chance I got to play this.
If you have played these games before, you've already kind of know it.
Right. Yeah, it's probably not a bad estimate. I did a few months ago. I played this with Rob, and that was, I think, one of Rob's first Hex Encounter games, and we only got 1 session in, and we made a pretty good dent considering it was someone's first go at it, and. I'd have to ask him if he thought that was a great introduction to Hex Encounter, but it certainly feels like it to me. Which I think is going to be important to consider in the rankings here, because it is a smaller, and Mark says this again, going back to his design notes, is this was meant to, and I didn't know this, meant to be as a small follow-up because designing Stalingrad 42 was so exhaustive.
Yeah.
It was just supposed to be a lighter, maybe not lighter, but just a smaller project to take on. And so it is smaller than something like Stalingrad 42. Recommended reading, I think we've alluded to it. There's great big bibliography of a few things in the notes, but one of them is the book Rich is reading, and that's The Day of Battle.
Yeah, which is excellent. I mean, it covers a lot more than just this, but Sicily actually goes by pretty quickly. It starts basically with the lead up to Sicily. It covers Sicily and then straight into this and then on to Rome from there. So
very good. Okay, folks. So we have a list of every war game ever made, ranked from best to worst, top to bottom, best to worst.
From the U.S. Civil War to Zeppelin Raider.
That's how it stands so far. Maybe the list will get shaken up tonight, but Rich and I are not the ones to say. As a matter of fact, Rich and I
don't think we have a new 1 or a new 68.
I probably agree with you. But Rich and I, whether we agree or disagree, just stick our hands out and mold the earth, the clay, the mud into this beautiful list. And so I think the measuring stick for me is the other Zachbon games, and
Sure.
the lowest is Normandy 44. I don't think this is as good as Holland 44,
No.
but that's not like saying that it's bad, right? This goes into when we talked about the lighter games, when we did the whole small game deal. They serve a purpose, and this being a great introduction into the Zachbon game. It's cheap, it's small footprint, it's easy to set up, it plays quick, it's got a low rules overhead, but it's fun. It's just a good hex and counter war game. Pretty straightforward with a good amount of chrome. It's like a good SCS design, but a little bit better. It's a step above SCS. So Normandy 44 is midway in our list at 33. There's some other stuff around there, and I know you haven't played Normandy 44, but what do you think of that general area around 33?
Yeah, so this I'm just going to ignore the fact that Men of Iron Tripack is at 34.
I agree.
So I'm not even going to compare it to there at 34. But looking at the rest of this list, I think Last 100 Yards is more innovative than this one, and I think it should be below Last 100 Yards. That's 31. But I think this general area, like I said, I can't compare it to Normandy 44 because I haven't played it, but it feels like this is the right area for it. I think, down to 36, 37, Operation Pegasus, All Bridges Burning, definitely higher than those, but I would put it lower than 31 at Last 100 Yards.
Okay, so something like Brotherhood and Unity and Reds, you're putting this above that.
Yeah, I think I would.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I mean, I really am. We're back to playing All Bridges Burning, and I'm super enjoying it again. But they're pretty dead even to me. But the other thing above All Bridges Burning is Operation Pegasus, and so there's an easier comparison. That's a hex and counter game. I think this is a better, for 90% of people probably, I think this is a better experience than Operation Pegasus. Operation Pegasus is great, but it carries 43 years of baggage. So I would probably put it above Operation Pegasus, which means it falls in above All Bridges Burning. But also, if you really wanted to push for All Bridges Burning above it, I wouldn't fight it.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, sweet. So at number 36, we have Salerno 43. Rich, we have ranked 68 games on our list. How many more games do we have left to rank?
Only one, so we can get to 69.
Yeah, nice.
No, I guess we can stop if we both rank every game that we own.
Yeah. Or
then we can stop.
Or 68 more, right? We can then do 68 more or play and rank every game we own.
One of the two. Whichever one comes second.
The latter of the two, yeah. Well, folks, you can help us decide what the next game on our list is, which may be one of these two games, Rich.
Yeah, so I'm going to push for Combat Commander.
Nice.
It's a game, like I said, I've been wanting to play it for a while. I finally got a chance to play it one time, so definitely don't want to evaluate it off one play, but it's a good game. I think it's going to rank fairly high on the list once we get it there, so I'd love to get that one on the list.
Great choice. I've got a busy month next month, so if Combat Commander wins, I'm going to hit Bill hard and heavy to teach me or refresh my memory on Combat Commander and get some plays in, because I know Bill loves that game. My problem with Combat Commander, I've mentioned this before, is the people I played it weren't interested in the game. And so it just killed and soured the experience. But so Bill, you're on the hook if Combat Commander wins.
And Combat Commander was the overall draft pick.
Yeah, first overall
draft pick.
Yeah,
so
Combat Commander Europe.
That's a good one.
So I'm going to keep with the little brother theme. I am very interested in, we have a Twilight Struggle episode, go listen to it. My thoughts are very clear on that game. Twilight Struggle Red Sea Conflict in the Horn of Africa just came out. Got a lot of love in the Historical Board Game Awards, runner-up on the Anglo-Zanzibar Award. hearing great buzz about it. And I have a copy on the way, and I really want to play this and compare it to Twilight Struggle, and also see like this idea of playing Twilight Struggle and not being reliant on the Steam version or an app or anything like that, and just playing it in like an hour, 45 minutes, however long it takes, is super appealing to me. So I'm going to throw up another little brother, and that's the little brother of Twilight Struggle, with Twilight Struggle Red Sea Conflict in the Horn of Africa.
I got a favor to ask of you, Matt.
Yeah.
Since you have a copy of this on the way, I want you to do an unboxing video. Sight unseen. I want you to pull the shrink, open it up, and tell me your reaction.
Oh my god, it's going to be a deck of cards and like a small map, isn't it?
I saw a copy of it get opened last week, and it was quite the scene.
All right. I mean, well, we talked about that with the small games, right?
Yeah.
Like, these small games should be in small boxes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep pushing for that, because make them portable, people. Like, rip off the Victory Point games, like puzzle piece shit. No one else is doing it.
Yeah.
Why not do that?
Yeah, the only reason I can guess that they do that is they need some shelf space, but it's particularly ridiculous with this one.
That makes me... Well, I still really want to play the game, because I think the game design in a bite-sized piece is really appealing. And then I can bitch about the boxing if it wins, because that is ridiculous. And getting all hot and bothered of I don't have my copy yet. Come on, people. Okay. All right. So if you want to help us decide, you can go to patreon.com/historytable, become a patron. You get to vote. You get some Discord benefits. There's some top secret channels. And you get a little purple tag and all that stuff. But most importantly, you get to vote on our game that we're going to play, which may be Comet Commander, Twilight Struggle, or Federation Commander. I'm not putting that on the list. I don't have time for that shit next month. But anything
I don't
like
think
that.
we have time for that.
So great. You can go do that and help us get game number 69 on the list. I feel like we should have thought about what game 69 should be. I mean, game 69 will be Zeppelin Raider.
It's going to be Zeppelin Raider next month.
That's fair. Awesome. All right, we have a listener question. We actually had a couple listener questions, but I wanted to just pick a couple of them, and Scuba's was right on topic. And I think it was a great question, because we talk about Zoc bonds, and then how much does it really matter here? So, of course, we have to get Art's marry, boink, or kill question in. And he gave us about 6 of them, but I took the topical one. So, Rich.
This one's hard.
Okay, do you wanna do marry, boink, kill? We both list them at the same time?
Yeah, so let's tell the listeners what we're doing. So
yeah.
Pacific Theater, Eastern Front, and then he's got Western Front and Med combined.
Yeah,
which feels like cheating to me.
It makes it juicy. All right, so let's start with Mary.
I gotta marry the Pacific Theater. I mean, that's the long-term love, right?
Well,
for a salty old dog like me, anyway.
Oh shit! You might have just convinced me on it. I was about to like. I thought I was clear on this, but then I started thinking about like Pacific War.
Yeah.
And the last 100 yards Solomon Islands, which is a fantastic. The rule sets on the Japanese is so good. I gotta marry. Where do you think Africa's in? In Med?
Yeah.
Okay,
Med
then I'm gonna marry
Africa.
Western Front and Med.
All right.
Which really, moving to Boink is obviously Pacific Theater for me, because it's that close. So, yeah, I'll step out on Western Front, Med, Africa to go mess around with Pacific Theater any day.
Yeah. I'm going to have to blank Eastern Front just because of Hungary.
Whoa.
I can't kill Hungary.
Oh, shit. I just realized what I did. Oh, no. Oh, Rich,
that's why this is so hard, man. That's not fair.
Fudge. Damn it. So I'm going to kill Eastern Front, which means I'm killing Finland, and I didn't even think about it, because outside of Finland, I actually don't really like the Eastern Front that much.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with Hungary, but yeah.
Damn it. Well, maybe...
I hope you're happy with what you've done, Art.
Maybe Western Front includes Finland.
And Hungary.
Oh, damn it, I'm killing Eastern Front.
Depends on your definition of the front.
You're killing like, at least from our perspective, like
D-Day.
the main.
I know.
Wow. And Africa.
Yeah.
And Mediterranean.
Italy. Yep. All of it. Atlantic
Dang.
chase. It's all gone.
Wow, I really fudged up. I don't know how I could change it, though. I mean, like, I never think of myself as, obviously we play a shit ton of World War II games, but I'm never like, oh, I'm a World War II gamer.
Right.
So I've never felt like bonded to any of these fronts. I like Western Front because it's what I'm close to. I really don't like most of Eastern Front outside of Finland, but I love Finland.
Yep,
that's trickier than I thought, Rich.
I mean, the Eastern Front stuff is, even the gaming of it, it's, I don't know, it's all really big and a lot of slogs and things like that. I find that the Western Front usually is more interesting, but it is what it is.
I guess we do get Stalingrad, and I do like the Stalingrad campaign.
Yeah.
Just because, especially in Stalingrad 42, it's this great, if you get to the point, it's this great thrust and counterattack, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Great Mary Boink kill this month, Art. And great listener questions for everyone. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but that just means we're saving them for the next episode. Okay, this is normally the point in the episode where we stop talking about war games, but I thought it may be fun, or not, to go through the Golden Geek nominations for Best War Game. I think there's some really cool stuff on here. I have played way more than I thought I did, or thought I would have, and there's a few that I want to play. I really want to play Resist. Haven't had a chance to play that. Fire and Stone was a game. Fire and Stone Siege of Vienna was a game that, you peel it back the curtain a little bit, I had nominated as one of my picks for Historical Board Game Awards, and I think just the timing didn't work out. I was a little surprised it didn't get more love. I think once you have the rules down, that thing plays like, just in my experience, has been super snappy.
That's one that I really want to play. It looks really interesting. I've picked it up at Miniature Market several times, just looked at the box and thought about it, but I kind of want to find someone that has it and play it with them and see how I like it.
Well, I'll bring it to Historic Fest, and
okay,
then if we get downtime, or if like you get downtime and just want to pull it out, like it's really not like you could read the rules and get up and get playing.
Yeah.
So that's I'm glad to see that's up there, which, that's interesting because that's one of the ones that's coming from a more mainstream publisher than what we're used to, right? It's coming from Capstone Games, and they have just put out one of the most highly regarded games of all time with Ark Nova, and so that's kind of cool. It's something different. Yeah. Have you played Caesar or Blitzkrieg?
No, I have not.
Okay, so Caesar's a lot of fun. I want a copy of Blitzkrieg. It's like these very quick playing, kind of like drawing your forces to simulate these combats in like a Euro way. It's like super fast though. I really want to play Blitzkrieg, which obviously covers World War II, from the same designers. But Caesar's fun. It's good. I don't know if I'd like really consider it a best of the year, but it's a pretty fun game.
Yeah.
Other things on the list.
It's interesting seeing like Pacific War and successors in there those are just straight reprints, which obviously you didn't. For historical board games, we didn't allow those, so putting those up against the actual new games.
Yeah, and Vietnam's not on the list, but then you have, obviously this is the same kind of process that something like the CSR awards use, where it's public vote. Like anything can get nominated, and then people vote on the finalists. And so you get things that you have war game as the category, but obviously that gets stretched when you have something like Votes for Women on there, which has gotten a ton of buzz and looks really interesting, which is clearly not a war game in the most literal sense, but obviously it's a historical game that a lot of people are enjoying. Yeah, it's a good mix. You have Almoravid and A Most Fearful Sacrifice, which is, we got to talk about that game at some point. That's a really cool implementation of Blind Swords. Most Fearful Sacrifice is really, I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. It's great. So you have like these big meaty war games going against these historical games or these new historical publishers. And you have Salerno 43 on there too. So I think it's a great representation of what 2022 looked like in terms of a historical board game award. or historical game, and it's got some crossover with the HPGAs, which is cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Now, if you're done with the war game, historical game talk, now we're going to talk about all the other stuff. You got anything going this month? Anything tickle your fancy?
Not really. Haven't, like I said, other than SwankyCon, haven't played a whole lot. Haven't even really been playing RPGs much. I do have every other Tuesday we are still playing Warhammer.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Yeah, it's still going. We are still on our original characters. None of us have died. We've come very close a bunch of times. In fact, like just last night we played and the dice were just not in our favor. I mean, it was just one of those nights where nobody was rolling well, and the bad guy got away from us. We had one person had to burn a fortune point to not die, but other than that, we're still up and running.
So I've kind of picked out a different fantasy system to start using, but Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay was in consideration there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just the character progression is so interesting, and a dark setting, and there's so many things that I want to play this game so bad someday.
The character progression is great. So my guy, he started as a student, and then he became a grave robber, and then he became a debt collector, and now he's basically a hitman. We've got another awesome guy that started as a boatman, and now he's a wizard.
So has your GM, and maybe this is if your GM's like experience in running Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. My concern with why I chose not to run this is I was going to use it for my own stuff or another source material that isn't Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And what I've heard is it's kind of hard to balance this game unless you like really know it. I don't know. Has that been a...
It's hard to know. I will say that our GM does know it really well. He's been doing this for a long time, and he is also using a published setting. He's using the Enemy in Shadows campaign, which is like 5 or 6 books or something. It's huge, and I think we're on the 3rd one now. So, yeah, he knows it, and he's using a published setting. So both of those would be allayed by that. As to whether it is hard to balance, I have no idea. I haven't even really looked into the back end stuff of this. Like, I've never tried to run anything in this setting, so really all I know is from the character side. Okay. I don't know what like monster stat blocks look like or anything at all.
All right. Well, it's in my definitely want to play and maybe run someday. In terms of RPGs, still playing some Savage Worlds stuff. I really like it. I did look at it for some stuff, but have you played Savage Worlds? I can't remember.
Yeah, I have. I played Deadlands.
So, which I really like the Deadlands stuff. The character creation was a lot of fun. What I think my general thought of Savage Worlds at this point is, going through character creation a few times, is it's great unless you want a really in-depth character and want an in-depth in terms of the actions that they can take. Particularly in like a magic user, like making one in Deadlands, it just felt, especially if you started as a novice, it just felt like you can only do so much. Like you're going to be shooting your gun or hitting someone with a whip or name your, and then there's this whole magic component, which seems really interesting, but it seems kind of shallow. So unless you're doing some kind of action other than melee or shooting or something like that, at least right now, it just feels like the depth in that regard isn't there. But I do love it. I like it we're doing a sci-fi game with our buddy Art. In that I don't need robust magic. I just need to be a smooth talking negotiator for a band of smugglers, and that's great. The system's great for that. When we get into combat, I have space weapons that go poo-poo and we're done, and that's awesome. But we're doing Days Volt, and I'm not a magic user there. But even when I looked at the magic stuff in Days Volt, it just didn't seem super deep. But
have you ever played Ars Magica?
No, what's that?
I don't know much about it. I just know that it's one that comes up in discussions of game systems with really interesting and unique magic systems. I've looked into a little bit, but I'm not sure that that's what I want to do, because I was looking for something. I've been wanting to run something like high fantasy, but not D&D. So I was looking into some other stuff.
My friend, let me tell you about Pathfinder 2e.
Yeah, really? I haven't played Pathfinder in a long, long time.
Love it. So a pretty big break from 3.5 and Pathfinder 1.
Yeah.
Just today they announced new core rulebooks coming out in November. So obviously if you got into it, I'd wait for that. The great thing with Pathfinder is all the rules are available online. It's not the best way to learn it, and there's a great starter box, which actually I'm going to be running. I love the work they're doing, just the worlds that they're coming up with. The quality of writing and like their setting books is fantastic. I've got so much Pathfinder 2e stuff now, and just the direction they seem to be going with their stuff is fantastic. And the reputation for their published settings is that most of their published setting stuff is like fantastic writing through.
Is it Kingmaker?
I've
heard that's like one of the best adventures ever.
Hear me out, Rich. Viking Con, we change it up, and we just do Viking, or we just do Kingmaker
would
for
would
5
Lawrence
days.
Put up with that?
I don't know. I mean, he did last through 2 hours of Aliens, so what's 5 days of Kingmaker? I don't know. But I seriously have thought about it, because Kingmaker, like, you venture into this land and you start your own kingdom, and they've updated it to 2nd edition. We should chit chat about this. I am very balls deep into Pathfinder lately, and I'm just consuming. And the rulebook just came back into stock, and then they announced the new one, and of course I just bought it, and I'm not even upset.
So what's going to be the difference between the old and the new? It's not a new version, is it?
It's not a new version. They came out with the base rulebook. It's like 600 pages, and it's player stuff and GM stuff. They've split that, and and arguably, if you have the original core rulebook, you don't have to get the new ones. But then there's the Advanced Player's Guide, and then there's the Advanced Game Mastery Guide. And so they're putting the Player's Guide with the player stuff and the Game Mastery stuff with the Game Mastery stuff, and then they're fixing a couple of classes, witches aren't very balanced right now, and kind of one of the biggest things is they're diverting from the D&D 3.5 open gaming license, and they're really distancing themselves. They've come out with their own open gaming license, and they're making their own thing. And so they are dropping alignment.
That's which good. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time alignment doesn't even matter.
Right.
There are some classes that depend on alignment in Pathfinder. The champion, which is basically your paladin. Mm-hmm. And they're just reworking that. And there were also some rules in Pathfinder about, like, alignment damage, like a good character doing extra damage to evil, and that's kind of being reworked. All that being said, if you have every single book for 2E now and this new stuff changes, there might be some wording differences, but everything still works. Other than the champions and witches are getting a little bit of a tweak, but it's not any different than errata that they put out. And so I watched the live stream today because I was like, shit, I just bought this book. But after watching, I'm like, pretty okay with it and really excited for. And character creation is awesome. It's all feat based. I like the classes. They're just diverse. Alchemists, and you can be a little plant alchemist running around, or a hobgoblin illusionist or summoner and stuff. It's really cool.
Oh, I did think one other game I'm gonna play. I don't think we have an exact date, but probably before we record again, we're gonna play Delta Green.
Oh, so I just purged a whole lot of stuff, right?
Did you?
And for the stuff that didn't sell.
I'm not running this, I'm playing it, so.
So I sent the stuff that I couldn't move, I sent off to Noble Knight. And I got the Delta Green slip cover because I have heard only amazing things about Delta Green. So you are playing in Delta Green.
Yes.
And this is not Fall Delta Green. This is the D100 Delta Green, right?
I think so, yeah.
Nice. I've heard they're both, one's Gumshoe and one's just Delta Green's own thing.
Okay.
I'm very jealous because I don't actually know when I'll play mine. I've kind of like reassessed how I'm doing RPGs, so I'm only focused on Pathfinder right now. So I won't be diving into my Delta Green book anytime soon. But that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm very jealous.
Let you know how it goes.
Do you know what scenario or anything you're playing?
Nope. Don't know any of that yet. I just know we've got a new group. These are actually guys I sing with. I've run them through a couple Cthulhu nights in the last few months, and now one of the guys, he wants to run one. So
that's awesome. So has he ran anything before?
I'm pretty sure he has. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna have to report in on this because I'm very interested in Delta
Yeah.
Green.
I think it'll be before we record again. I think it's gonna be sometime in May.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah, so that's, I said it's been a light month. The last month has just been a lot of RPG stuff. RPGs have kind of come to the forefront, and just trying to get what I just rearranging things to make things work and make things get to the table, and then knowing that I wanted to run something else, but then trying to find it, and then kind of settling on Pathfinder has me very excited for Pathfinder.
Yeah, me too, because like I said, I've been looking for something. I didn't know what I wanted, but I didn't even think of Pathfinder because, not that I had anything against the old version, but I guess I just never really thought about Pathfinder 2.0.
I'll send you a link to the rules. It's not the best for learning, but at least you can click around and learn about all the different.
Yeah.
You can see the classes and the feats, and there's a free character builder and stuff, and that's where I started.
Okay.
And then the thing that sold me was they just came out with this book called the Mwangi Expanse, which is the lore setting for basically the Africa continent. And then it's just really well written, and I really enjoyed it. And then I just kept going deeper and deeper. So I'll send you a link to the rules, and you can click around for free.
Nice.
It's called Archives of Nethys, if you're a listener and want to find them.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, any other stuff?
No, that's about it for me.
All right. Well, folks, if you want to come and ask us questions about Mary Boinking killing, or ask questions about ASL or GCACW or Blind Swords, we've had great Civil War talk going on lately. Watching W.A. Wilson fall into the world of Civil War more and more and more has been awesome, as well as, oh dang it, see, now I feel bad calling one person out and not remember the other person that's been doing a bunch of Civil War stuff. I mean, Patrick's always doing Civil War stuff, but now I feel bad. But yeah,
I have not been as active on Discord lately just because I've been busy with work and other stuff. And
yeah, that's how life goes.
Yep.
Maybe it was, well, I'm not going to try to guess. Okinamayaka Marine. I butchered that, but they have also been enjoying a bunch of Civil War stuff. So it's been really cool. But there's also a million other things going on. If you're not one of those people, and I didn't mention you, sorry, but there's awesome stuff going on. Talking Le Carré books, all that good stuff. You can join our Discord server. Come hang out with Rich and I where the good stuff happens. All right, you got anything else, Rich?
Nope, that's all I got. Have a good night, everyone. Come play some games.
Yeah.
Historic Fest.
Yeah. See y'all in August. We'll be back in May. Vote for your game. May's going to be a little crazy for me, and we'll have more details on this, but June's going to be even crazier. But we'll get there. All right, Rich. Everyone, good night.
Good night, everyone.